Okay, first we're going to take our clay and we need to roll it out. When we're rolling it out, we want it to be the thickness of like a hand-tossed pizza. Not thin crust and not deep dish, but hand-tossed. So we're going to roll it out with a rolling pin. And I always stand and roll, and that way I can put my weight into rolling. And you want to flip it over every once in a while. That helps to keep it from sticking to the wallpaper. And mine's getting really long, so when I flip it, it's fine if I want a long island, but I don't, I want it more round. So I want to flip it and turn it. Okay, now we have about the thickness of a deep dish pizza, so we need to keep going. Roll and roll and roll and flip once in a while. And it's okay, it's not the shape, exact shape I want it. We're gonna add that in later. So we're almost there. One or two more rolls and we should be fine. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now, we don't want our island super flat. We want it to have a better shape than that. We don't want it super round. So to do that, we're going to take one of the clay pencils, and from your sketch, you just draw the shape for your island, whatever shape you chose. Now, if you do this and you don't like something you did, you can just take your finger and erase it and draw it how you do want it. Once you get that done, you're going to cut it out. You can use anything to cut. Even popsicle sticks work really well, but you can use plastic knives, whatever, and we're going to cut the shape out. We're going to save the extra clay because we can use that to make the trees and the houses for our island. I'm going to pull that off and set it to the side. Now we have the basic shape of our island. Now sometimes on islands you have thin parts where like the beach goes down into the water. So to do that we're going to pinch the edges to make it go down into the water. You can keep it thick in some areas too, but I'm going to have a beach along this area. Probably about half my island, some over there and some over here. When we have that done, our island's super flat. We need at least one hill on there. To do that, we take a newspaper. We don't need much of it. I'm just going to take a little bit and crumple it up, and you put that underneath. And you put it underneath, but you don't just keep it like that. You have to press it down till you get the hill. So let's say I have a hill here. I'm going to turn this a little bit. Maybe I want another little hill over here, so I'm just going to take a teeny bit and shove it under here. Then I have the basic shape of my island. Okay, next we're going to add trees. Remember, you need to add 20 or more trees to your project. So what I'm going to do is take some of the extra clay, and I'm going to take and I'm going to roll it in a ball. And since it's a tree, it doesn't have to be exactly perfect. Now, we're not worrying about trunks to our trees at all. Since everything is miniature, everything is under 1 inch, we don't need to worry about that kind of detail. So this will count as the top of like a maple tree or an elm tree. Once we have this done, we can take a fork or a pencil or any tool you want, and you need to add a texture to it. Texture is really important in this project. And don't just add it to the top. Add it all the way around. Lots of texture. And that's the basic shape of your tree. Now another kind of tree you can make would be an evergreen tree. So you start the same way, then once you get it in a circle, you start pinching the top. We're trying to make more of a cone shape. Right now it looks a little bit like a teardrop. You just take and you pound that down a little bit, and you'll get the basic shape of an evergreen tree. And you can do the same thing. You can take a fork and you can add some texture that way. Another good tool to use would be the toothbrush. It adds a little bit lighter of a texture. Sometimes I like to do a combination of both. So it's got some big dents and some small dents, but texture all over it. Now, I'm done with the tree. I should just place it down, right? No, that would pick right off. So to attach 2 pieces of clay, you score the clay, which means roughing it up. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to take my fork and rough it up. And then my tree is going to go right here. So I'm going to rough up that area, score that area. Then I'm gonna reach over and take my clay glue, which is called Slip. It's just glue and water, and put some on the bottom of that, and then place it down. Now I don't want to place it at an angle so the tree's growing out. We want the tree to be growing straight up and down. I'm gonna place it like that. Then I can take my finger or a tool and I can smooth that out. Now, I'm not going to smooth it out too much because right next to it, I'm going to put this other tree. So it's already scored, so I do have to score right here a little bit more, rough it up. Add my slip to what I want the bottom to be, and I stick that down. So I'm going to have trees around this ridge area. So that is how you do trees. And remember, you need to have 20 or more. Okay, next we're going to add houses or buildings, some sort of shelter. Remember, you need a food source, a water source, and shelter. So to do that, this is probably the hardest part of the assignment, is you can take clay. There's several different ways to do this. I'm going to take a ball of clay, and you can just take and you can press this. You can pound it down if you want to, or press it until you get it into a block type shape. This is one way to make a building. So this could be a building, if I want a flat roof, like the school has a flat roof. If you want a triangle roof like most people have on their homes, then you can take, I'm going to set it down to the side. This would be a good tall building, but I want it more of a house. You can take and you can pinch up one side to start to make it into the triangle at the top. This is one way to do it. I think this is the harder way, but I have students that say it's the easier way. It's just try different ways and see what works for you. So once you get this part done, this is where you can add the details. You can take the clay pencil, you can add a little door in here if you want to, windows, whatever you would like. We need textures on here, and we want windows on all the different sides. And for the roof, what I like to do, and again, you can do this lots of different ways. This is another use for the ribbon cutting tool. You can take and you can press into it and make it look like the texture of a roof too. Okay? Now, when we're going to put our house on here, let's say I want this house. Does it look good right here? This would be a terrible house to live in. Everything you own would just fall down to that side. So if I want it on the side there, I need to build up underneath it so it has a place to stay, or I need to pound it down right there so it fits better into the side of that hill. A better idea would be to find a place, maybe I want the hill, I probably want to turn my island this way. This is my plans. This is where I would have more of the houses. So I could put it right here. Again, we would have to rough it up, which is scoring the clay, putting slip on it, and sticking the house down wherever I wanted the house to be. That's one way to do a house. Another way is you can take the same chunk of clay that we had before, but this time you can take a knife or anything in here that you think would cut. Again, clay is so easy to cut. And I can set this down and I can just chop off the end to make it a nice flat side. So I can take and do that. I don't know if you'll be able to see when I have this down on the ground, but I'm just chopping off 4 sides to it. This is, I think, a little bit easier to get the flat shape. Right now it looks like a loaf of bread, doesn't it? I can again pinch the top, but another way to do it is to turn this on its side, and I'm going to take and I'm going to cut the triangle on the top. Like that. That could be another way to do a house. I would do the same thing, add my detail, score and slip, and place the house down somewhere. Since I'm not doing this yet, I'm just going to set them off over the side. You can also take a big chunk of clay and you can take your rolling pin. I'm going to scoot this out of the way. I can take my rolling pin and not roll this really thin, roll this thick. Keep it nice and thick. And this is a way to make multiple houses at one time. So I could take it like this, and then I could cut big squares out of this. This would be good if I was making my Hy-Vee store, or I guess this could be my mall too, couldn't it? If I wanted a mall on there. I don't have a mall in my plan, but I'm gonna cut this in half. So you can see you can get multiple buildings at one time. Again, I would wanna add detail with a pencil or some textures. Like if this is my Hy-Vee store, I need definitely the doors on there, okay? And then you can put that on your island. Now it might be kind of fun if I put this on the island, I would probably have to have a parking lot too, or something like that. So this is another way to do buildings. Again, you can come up with your own ideas too. Another thing to think of too, some of you were thinking about doing castles. So you can take this same idea, I would roll this a little thinner, and you can use this as your castle walls. The same idea where you cut a big long strip, like this, and you could take that, this could be a wall of any sort, but I could take this, you could cut the little notches out if you wanted to, but I'm just going to keep it like this, and I could put that down as a wall, maybe protecting my island. So many uses for these strips too. This could be cut down too, and this could be used as a bridge that goes across. See what you can come up with to make out of rectangles or strips of clay. Now I'm going to show you how to add roads and water, whatever you want. This is where we're going to use a ribbon cutting tool again. And this is one of my favorite tools because as you're digging, the clay that comes out looks like a ribbon. So I want water to go between my two hills. So I just take this and I'm going to start over here. I'm going to press this down, make a beach. And that's where the water is going to end, down in the ocean, and you're just going to cut out a strip wherever the water, or again this could be a road. Try not to cut down too deep, we don't want to go all the way through. Maybe it comes down across here and out the other end. So, see the ribbon? So once we get that done, on here we can take and smooth the edges, but you can also take and you can put little lines if you want to make it look like water. We'll also be painting that blue so they'll be able to tell the difference between a road and the water. And I can even use some of this extra if I wanted to, because I need a bridge right here to go across. Otherwise this person's going to be stuck on this half of the island. So that's another way that you can add some more detail, how to get around your island. So have fun and see what else you can do. Like what could you possibly do with a toothbrush? What could you do with different shaped ribbon cutting tools? And just discover new things when you're creating this project. Step number 1 is to take your brush and paint the thin black paint all over your island. You want to make sure you get in all the cracks. If you have trouble getting it in small areas, just take a lot of the paint and then stab it in and then spread it out. Your goal is to get rid of all white spots. Now to make sure you do that, you're going to need to turn your island and you'll be able to see some that are on the opposite side. When you get done, show it to one other classmate and they are going to look for any white spots, and then show it to the teacher, and I will check for white spots. Once that's done, you need to really clean your brush out to get all the paint and ink off. Color mixing will be the next part. You're going to start off on your clay island painting all the ground surfaces, the grass, the sand, and the water. When you get those done, then you start doing the things that are higher up, the trees and the buildings and things like that. Now, the main rule for this part is you cannot use any colors straight out of the bottle. So if I'm doing my grass, I cannot paint it this green. No grass on this earth is this color of green. It's just a little too bright. And this is a good opportunity to practice mixing your colors. Now,
Green, if I want to make it more of like a lime green color or a yellow green, then I would add yellow to it. If I want to make the green a little bit darker, it's called a shade of green by adding black. We had talked about that when we were in 3rd grade. If you want to make it lighter, you add white to it, and that is called a tint. Now, you might notice that I have red on here, and no real ground surfaces should be red. But if you add a little bit of red to green, it'll make the color dull. The reason being is green and red are called complementary colors. They're across from each other on the color wheel. So when you mix them together, it kind of muddies the color some. So you have a choice of what you want to do. You can do a shade, you can do a tint, or you can make it dull. Or you can do a yellow-green color. I'm going to start with a yellow-green color. So I don't want to mess up these colors. So to mix, I'm going to put colors into the center. Now once you have the yellow there, you know that you need to use your water dish and wash your brush, and I'm doing that off on the side, and then you need to dry it before you put it in the green and bring some green up here, and then you mix it together. Now when you're mixing, you want to keep it in a small area because each class period you only get one paint tray, so you got to use it wisely. Now once I get the color completely mixed, it takes a while to get rid of those little lines in there. Then if I'm going to mix another color, I would wash and dry my brush. Next color I'm going to make is going to be sand color. I'm going to move this so you can see the other colors on the paint tray. I also have blue, which would be for the water, and I have some brown, and for sand color, I think that's one of the harder colors to make. So what do you think of, what colors do you think you would mix to get sand color? The answer is you're going to start with some white, quite a bit of white in fact. Then we're going to take a little bit of brown. Again, I'm washing my brush off between times. Washing and drying. There's one more color. Did you figure out what it is? If you answered yellow, you are correct. And then you mix those together and you should get a sand color. If you don't, you need to figure out what the problem is. If it's too dark, then we need to add some white to it. If it's too yellow, some more brown. It'll be good practice for you. I think this looks okay. So have fun mixing colors. Now we're ready for a dry brush. Now, dry brush is going to be slightly difficult for a lot of you because usually I say no white spots, cover the area in solid color, but this is different. You want the texture of your island to show up. So dry brush techniques means you have your brush and you have very little paint on it. I've already washed and dried my brush off, so when I get paint on it, I just get the tiniest amount of paint. If I get too much, I just take and dab some of it off on the paper towel. Then you're gonna take and you're gonna find your grassy areas and you're just gonna lightly brush on top of it. Get a little more. You want to have the black lines show up underneath. Just like that. Now, I have a sandy beach down here, so pretend like I've done all my grassy areas. I need to wash and dry my brush off. Very important to do the drying part or it's not going to be dry brush. I'm going to get a little sand color. And again, I'm just going to make sure I don't have too much. Brush the top layer. It shouldn't cover the entire area. You want that texture to show. So that is what we're going to do for our island. So remember to paint the grass, the rivers, the sand, anything down on the surface gets painted first. Once that's done, you can do the trees and the buildings and all the bridges, that kind of stuff second, because you have to be careful around the edges. So have fun painting.